I do want to hear about your theory or the thing you're playing with of the meaning crisis is fake. I don't know what to make of the meaning crisis exactly.
Yeah, I like this was something I was just meditating upon at the start of the year, so I ended up not following it through, but yeah, it was just all these discourses, and you just the idea that like there's this big meaning crisis, and it just seems like it's another subcultural thing that's like mediating between actually participating in reality. This idea that you need some, so yeah, do you need some grand meaning, or do you just need to live a life that's embedded in meaningful activities? Does meaning just come about day to day from being like, I care about my family, I'm invested in my work?
But that is the meaning crisis. Those are gone.
Well, I think
Well, people don't have families.
Well, I mean, there's
So not like loneliness crisis.
Yeah.
I've read articles where like, is the loneliness crisis overhyped? Although it seems to be among younger generations there is, but yeah, like there's a report being like the people aren't any more lonely than they were decades ago. It's a bit disputed, but yeah, I just think this idea with the meaning thing of it doesn't have to be this grand overarching thing, and I think with that you end up seeking this massive all-encompassing intellectual answer. You just get pulled into these like echo chambery, not even echo chambers, but it's like these like overly intellectual responses to life rather than just engaging with the thing itself,
right,
and living your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one thing that really got me thinking about this was a friend of mine was giving a talk on the meaning of life, funnily enough, but great talk. But afterwards was kind of some discussion going on. And the first guy that spoke was at my table, and it was kind of just reacting to the talk and to the topic. And he was like, yeah, you know, I was married to an amazing woman for 51 years. We had a beautiful life together, wonderful family. And 3 years ago, she died from COVID. And yeah, ever since, the meaning is gone from my life. And it was just like a visceral gut punch that everyone in the room felt, because there was no sense of like he was trying to evoke a reaction. There was no sense of guile. It was just his truth, and his eyes were watering up a bit. And you were just like, wow, you felt it. And then the next guy to speak was like probably mid-20s, kind of shaved head, kind of the Buddhisty kind of look. And he said, yeah, I think the meaning of life is like dealing with your dark side. And I was like, oh, okay. Just like this Jungian kind of like, it's like theory is a mediation between you and living your life. And it's like, I don't know, this guy's a farmer with not no interest in philosophy, but there's no like philosophical mediation. And I'm like, I can tell you which of these I admire more.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think concepts must be subordinate to material reality in some major way. Mm-hmm. But shouldn't we introduce ourselves, perhaps?
No. We'll jump right in.
No, let's do it.
All right, go ahead.
I want to hear your introduction.
Yeah,
should we introduce each other? Do that. That's cute.
Interesting.
All right, yeah. You introduce James.
Okay.
James introduces me, and I'll introduce CJ.
Okay. This is James of the Living Philosophy YouTube channel. He's an intellectual that is on a constant journey that has a very impressive knowledge of a lot of thinkers throughout history. And every time I talk to him, I learn a lot of things and I get really excited. And his YouTube channel is good, even though it's constantly changing brand and direction.
It's a constant evolution. I like that as a good encapsulating introduction. This is Paul from PF Jung. Everyone knows your name is Paul, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. This is Paul from PF Jung, and
do they know your last name is F Jung?
Yeah, never mind. But yeah, and he is the archetypal
white
enlightened centrist. And yeah, it just really covers a lot of the ground. He's a recovering Jordan Peterson fan.
Aren't we all?
And yeah, just tries to make the world a better place by reducing polarities. So and with a bit of humor, which I appreciate.
Thank you. Wow, that means a lot. And this is CJ. He has a YouTube channel. Now, CJ the X is one of the foremost artist philosophers of our time, I believe. The most important contribution in my mind that CJ makes is stripping Jordan Peterson philosophy of all of its nonsense and pomp and circumstance, and re-synthesizing it into something digestible for a left-wing audience that needs to hear it, because we all know the woke left.
Being interpretive. This is getting interpretive rather than descriptive.
The problem with interpretation is that no, but CJ makes very good videos on the archetypal infotainment. Not infotainment has its negative connotations, but in terms of art that is entertaining of itself, but also communicates a great deal. I'd put CJ's work in there.
Ah, thank you. All right, so you see that was sweet.
I like
That was
that.
great.
I like the introducing each other. Yeah, that's
All right, so I'll go around and say
You want to do cheers again?
our opinions on.
Well, now we're getting
Now we're getting the real thing.
this thing. Yeah. We've done our introduction.
Now it really sucks.
Now,
I tried that during a live stream.
where do you guys stand on Israel?
Stop it.
We'll get there at the end.
I tried that in a live stream one time. I was just like out of nowhere. I was just like, now the real live stream starts with no plan. I was just like, what happens if we just like, you know?
Okay, hold on. In the context of meaning, though, because I think it's interesting to discuss the nature of meaning. I subscribe to the Petersonian kind of definition, which is meaning is a physiological instinct, right? So it's like hunger or thirst. Like, is hunger or thirst real? It's like, is hunger objective? Is meaning objective? Where's meaning? It's like, meaning is a physiological instinct that occurs.
What do you mean by meaning, though?
I mean, specifically, you can nail it down to like flow state, the sense of meaningful engagement.
Yeah.
So like when you're watching a movie and you're enthralled in the movie, you're not thinking about yourself. It's like, you know, there's elements to it of like, you don't feel a sense of time.
I mean, I guess the fact that we have a dopamine system means that by that definition, that meaning is an inherent part of life, because the dopamine system is this goal-seeking behavior of being engaged with the thing and moving towards a goal.
Yeah,
so
but
is that what you mean by meaning?
Yeah, but that's like reducing love too. Well, love, the dopaminergic circuit is active.
Yeah, I'm not just trying to
about
reduce
love.
it to the neurochemical, but I'm just saying that system is inherently always active. So how could you have a meaning crisis when there's always that system is all like, it's kind of like saying we get hungry, like there's a hunger crisis.
Right.
The things, well, you know.
Well, the argument would be the primary sources of meaning in society have been eroded, like religion, community, stuff like that.
But I don't think that fits with the definition of meaning as you're presenting it. If meaning is just about being engaged with what's going on in the world, I don't think it's a grand overarching narrative.
Well, I would problematize the definition definitely, because I think that like I know that I understand like you're going the Petersonian direction, that like the urge towards meaning is inherent and kind of creates the world as we know it somewhere in there. But I think that what you were talking about earlier of being like I don't know, the meaning crisis and doing a lot of pontification about the meaning crisis sometimes doesn't really, like, it feels like sometimes it's missing the point, because you have people just intellectualizing big ideas of what like capital M meaning is, this thing that we all seek, when I think it's a lot like, you know, the paradox of hedonism. You know what I mean? Like the capital M meaning, like you can't get it by looking for meaning.
Right.
Like it's this kind of byproduct. So like you said, like being connected to, I know it's kind of a circular definition, but something meaningful. And so I don't know. I think there is actually a lot tied up in like, you know, finding like what is living a meaningful life like look like, and like how do you make it so that, you know, more and more people can live a meaningful life. Or feel like their life is meaningful subjectively.
So I think you're not buying into that Petersonian definition of meaning with like that day-to-day thing of being engaged in the world. You're kind of pointing more to the grand narrative.
Well, I think both of you tend to dabble more in the like physiological and like neurochemical and how the brain works and all that. And I kind of eventually made a call to just steer away from that, because I'm more of like an aesthetic philosopher or a philosophy philosopher, or like
religious schizo, and we're more autism.
I don't know what that means.
On the autistic schizophrenia spectrum.
I just think there's a lot of there's a lot of like appeals to like physics and science, and like a kind of like, you know what I mean, where that's just reality that I'm trying to I don't know. I just don't want to ever pretend. I don't want to pretend to care as much or want to win the fight on that grounds. I don't find it like, you know, basically necessary to have like these philosophical conversations about.
I share some of that hesitance, because it's so easy to abuse the complexity of these natural systems and to kind of ideologize them, where you just turn them into something that's like, this fits into this neat category and I'm going to use this as, it's like weaponizing nature. in a way that like it doesn't.
Yeah, weaponizing science. Like I feel like I know some scientists and I like them, and part of what I like about them is that they're like they don't have like such an obvious motive. I feel like that's the thing about like there's a lot of things that Jordan Peterson does with religion and his interpretation of various philosophers and his descriptions of history and his descriptions of science that are like super motivated. I think the biggest thing is that those are very his interest in like neuroscience is clearly very subordinate to his grand design thing that he would like to sell. And I think that's fine. Like Nietzsche would also say like every philosopher is motivated. Like your philosophy is a confession. Like
it's not really Nietzsche said to the philosopher, nothing is impossible.
Yeah,
he would,
exactly. Yeah. And so for me, I would rather just own that and be like, I have my grand design thing. It's my point of view is very motivated, and I'm not trying to pretend that it's provable by science or whatever. Like I sometimes discover information that fits into
that distinction between the wet and the dry, and this like I guess wet in the sense is
just explain
is like.
Because you said this the other night, and I didn't ask you to explain where you got that from, and I just
it was an alchemical thing. So dry, like think about reading a book. We describe a book as like, it's very dry. It's kind of boring. Yeah. There's no spark in it. And the thing about Peterson as an amazing rhetorician is that all of his talk is so soaked.
Yeah.
That it's like, it motivated, basically what I mean by
it's filled with emotion and bleeding between boundaries, between disciplines, and just super fucking, it's exciting. I mean, when that happens, it's exciting.
Yeah. So I think that's because it's pathos, you're pulling on, like the balance is very much in the direction of pathos and evoking emotionality, whereas the dry is much more towards just pure logos, much more towards just the dry facts, and not necessarily getting into the interpretation and grounding it in your everyday life and bringing it to life and kind of like telling you this is the most important thing you could ever read. So like science, when you'd already read it, is like, it's more, look, there's this shape on the snail's back, but it's not on this snail's back, and isn't that fascinating? It's like,
sure,
no, it's not. But like, cool, you spend time doing that.
Fucking snails.
Whereas everything that Peterson's talking about is very much like, this is, it's life or death kind of thing, and that kind of gives you like it engages the emotional so much. So I think that the dryness of science, but then, I mean, that's when you're reading academic science, but then that's where the weaponization comes in, is that like making it moist of like how much talk about there is of dopaminergic systems, serotonin systems, and it's this mapping over of the functions onto something which might be bad. Like we understand so little about serotonin. Like the DSM, what was it, the 1980s, early 1980s, they put that together, the diagnostics that did come out, and they were like, these we've agreed that these are all the things, and we're going to find the neurochemical correlates of this, or the neuroscientific correlates. And 34 years later, and they found nothing. They like none. They thought they'd pin everyone. They were like, "Oh, we've got the science worked out." It's just like we're still so young in these things. So like, I just to say, I appreciate the delicacy around that, but
I think it's important to have just intellectual humility. I think there's like, so we're talking about also like, where does like the meaning come from? And I think this is it is a lot of like what I read.
But I still don't know what you mean by meaning. Like, what is the?
Well, I am agreeing to like the fact that people thirst for meaning. You know what I mean? That some people feel like their lives are meaningless. And you can have like a very efficient or even like healthy life, but you might feel like it's not meaningful. Like there's a yearning. That some people are more fulfilled. They feel like they have more meaning in their lives, and some people are less. And that for example, I think that like a lot of religious people feel like they have this very meaning giving thing. And then if you don't have that, then you sometimes have to define it for yourselves, and that haunts some people more than others, like the existential issue of like, okay, there is no inherent meaning, so I just have to decide what to do with my life. And some people are very tortured by that chaos and responsibility.
So I wonder with that, whether that isn't an abstractifying and an intellectualization of what might be a more fundamental basic need being thwarted. So,
which is
community? I'm not sure, and it could be different things in different cases, but there's a researcher in Limerick, where I'm from, and out in university, and he did this paper studying the spirituality and how. So he's studying carers, and he found that the carers who were higher in spirituality, or like were more, on the questionnaires, they ranked that as a very important part of their lives. They were actually less adapted and they struggled more mentally,
Right.
compared to the people who ranked it less, but those people tended to have denser social connections. And so
Right.
I think, is there something missing that we're seeking to compensate it with this over-intellectualized thing? We're trying to fill in a very human hole, and then you dress that up and you pathologize it. Like nihilism is a great example, and this is kind of what peeved me originally, is that it's like, are you nihilistic or are you just lonely? Like, is it that there's no meaning in life? Is it that like nothing matters?
Yeah.
Or is it just that you need a friend
Yeah.
and you need some connections? And if you had that, you wouldn't have that struggle. But because you're not contextualizing that struggle at the right level, so you're turning it into this grand thing about the universe, when really it's something much smaller and human.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go out and make
neurochemical and
friends.
neurophysiological. Like,
Go for it.
I mean, it's like the spectrum of, okay, then you have the super abstract and you have the, like being in flow state, right, is like a practical thing. You know, everyone understands what that is. It's like, we're watching a really compelling movie or listening to like a really compelling song. It's like, there are physiological markers of, you know, like a hair stands on the back of your neck if you're listening to like a really good song, or you're watching like a really important climatic point in a movie. It's like, that speaks of meaning. And it's like, then, okay, and I'm not reducing it to like dopamine or whatever, but like in some sense, you know, the Peter Sunny thing is like, you want to know what meaning is? Get married, have kids. It's like the meaning is self-evident at that point, you know? And it's like that I would say that speaks to kind of what you're saying of like, there are people who are abstracting it out and like, well, meaning has to be, or we create our own meaning, which is like, that is the dumbest idea. I hate that. Not that you're purporting that idea per se, but if we'll say like,
I think like existential.
no, like it's like I think Richard Dawkins have said this when he's been asked about like, well, humans make our own meaning. It's like, no, we don't. It's like meaning is something that is discovered and found. You can't, like a video game, when you first start playing a video game that you really enjoy, it's, you know, it's meaningful. You're like engaged with the game. You cannot will yourself to find meaning in that game 5 years later once you've played it through already. Right?
So I mean, this is my point about the meaning crisis discourse, is that like that framing of like, it makes you think of meaning as in the grand narrative that like puts you in this, like makes the cosmos make
yeah, right. You have to have some archetypal why or something like that.
I'm saying that like that discourse is misleading. Because
I agree.
actually,
I would agree.
Actually, because you frame it as that, you're like, oh, I need to know the answers to the biggest questions that have puzzled everyone for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Whereas the other framing is like, hey, I need to go out and make friends.
Go do something.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's like, so it's the intellectual mediating your relationship with life. And it gets in the way because the discourse like makes it seem like you need to go further into the intellectual thing. And it's like, maybe you're just an introvert and that's your comfortable space. And that could be the fucking problem rather than the thing that's leading you to the water that you actually need.
Yeah.
So that's where my skepticism with that meaning kind of discourse comes in. Cause I'm like, I think it's a bit of a red herring, because meaning can be like, what do you mean by meaning? And then I think, and then there's the level of like, I think it's pathologizing, it's intellectualizing and over abstracting what might be a more basic human need. But then it's like, why is that a tendency? Because I've been there, you know, like
why is the tendency? This is what you're talking about earlier. Is like, why is it all right, go on.
Like, why do you want to do that? Why would it be more tempting to intellectualize it rather than thinking, oh, I need to go out and make friends?
So what was the thing you were saying before about the this urge, like that is an apparent urge that is constantly expressed? You remember what you're talking about, like why this pathological need, but I forget what the need was, but it's attached to what you're talking about just now. You were saying something about God.
Was it talking about God?
Christ.
Yeah, you were.
So I guess what you.
Oh, hell! Was it hell?
No, went to like just now.
It might have been yesterday. You were talking about.
So yeah, I don't know.
The apocalypse was the apocalypse. You said like there might be some sort of need to see people. Yeah, what's the psychological need that's fulfilled by every culture and like every generation, all wanting to have like not wanting, but having an apocalyptic like structure in their mind. It's like the image of the apocalypse in there, So what if that's a constant? Like, what's the psychological need that needs there to be an apocalypse? Like that kind of demands it in a way.
Yeah, I think it gives like an urgency to life, and it gives it.
It's kind of like a representative of death, mortality, right?
Yeah, it's an archetype. It's not. I mean, it's there because the world, like we all are mortal and we all die, and the world is always at risk of ending.
Right. So it's like the meta meme of your personal death, and everyone's
right.
Yeah,
right.
it's like you're taking that personal death, and you're like, this is so much like power to it that I need to, it can't just be me that dies. It's
Right.
everything.
Because if your life becomes, because it's like if you become to the point of like, wanting to end your own life and like your life lacks that much meaning, it's as if the whole world is like that. It's like reality itself is saturated with this nihilism and lack of meaning.
Yeah.
That was one of
It's
my
not
baby
just-
philosophy thoughts. I always think of like stuff that I used to rave about between the ages, I want to say like 17 and 19 as like my baby philosophy era before I found God, is before I found like Christianity and community and grew up a little. But and then it was before I had any interest in studying philosophy. So it was just shit that I would just say. but like one of them is I was the idea like your individual perspective is a perception of the entire cosmos. So when you die, a universe does die. Like the universe.
The reality. It's like the whole multiverse theory, right? It's like I don't know the degree to which there's consensus on.
It's one interpretation of
But I think people like David Deutsch are like, I know it's for sure it's real. It's like multiverse. It's like, okay, whatever.
Like it's just one interpretation of the quantum mechanics. It's just one.
But that's their most parsimonious explanation. Is there's many.
But are you kind of moving towards like the multiverse already exists? It's everybody's like perceptions and consciousnesses or whatever.
Well, I'm saying like, okay, let's say that is true. Whatever that means is like, what is then you have to ask the question like, well, okay, so what is so are the other realities part of reality?
Yeah.
Do we owe that moral consideration? And it's like, like reality is a concept that exists only because I'm here to conceptualize it, right? And if I was part of one of those other multiverses, then what is reality different or whatnot?
Or anything of like going into other ones and like screwing over other parallel universes. Like, what is the ethics of that since it's not yours? But then I feel like if you're encountering it in the flesh, the ethics becomes embodied, and then it's hard to do it.
So, anyways, really important. I think towards your earlier point, this doesn't matter at all.
We could get into this, but it's
it's fun.
What is the nature of race?
But it's like it's so detached. Or detached from having like a marriage and a kid, or having like a career and becoming like encultured or being passionate about something, or becoming like disciplined or practiced in something or whatever. Which to me, like that's the massive thing that I think everything that I started like the baby philosophy thought was always no, art is objective, and it's just because I was surrounded by people that was like art is subjective, and I was like I hate that and I wanted to fight it. And then it is exciting to like over time like become studied and mature, and then realize kind of like I was passionate about what's pragmatically built into either assumption, like art is subjective or art is objective. And all that matters in the making it more objective is just that it isn't just you sitting alone deciding what it is, but like that, to me, the richness of life and the kind of the meaning of being here is like to get involved with the world, is to become part of the world and make yourself part of it and like, leave a mark and become part of like a thing. So it's like, get good at podcasts, like read some books, like learn something about history and become like a thing of some kind. Like you could be a musician, or even just like you could be like a dock worker, or you could be someone that goes on a lot of walks and just become that thing. And now you are involved with the world. And so you have become more objective, and that like you're identifiable. There's a coherence to your life. And now you are something. And that happens when you get twisted and tangled up with the world. Like you meet it and you guys become part of each other.
Yeah, you are within the flow of the world, and you're not like stuck outside observing it as a thing. You're living it.
Yeah, you're in it. You're part of it. Yeah,
So
you're part of the grand drama.
I wonder, because you got the perspective also of the Christian, so you have the grand narrative, right? So I wonder how you, how do you take what I was saying about the meaning discourse, because that is obviously a very important part of your life. How do you think that fits in? Do you think everyone needs that, or?
I think what you mentioned multiple times with the meaning thing is that you might be over intellectualizing that you're lonely. Mm-hmm. And to me, the entire Christian faith is very, very just about personal relationship and like social, like mostly personal relationship. And John McMurray is a Scottish philosopher that I'm really passionate about. And he like has basically the same perspective that like the entire, morality of Christianity is just based around free, spontaneous, totally honest personal relationships, and that's where the meaning is. Like that's the whole thing. And so like that's what he would perceive like all of the Christianity to be essentially a metaphor for. Like that's the material data out of which we perceive that. Like one of the things he says is like assuming that we could go back in time to like the Old Testament times, like whatever time was being described, whatever was happening. And there's people that saw like the back of God and they're blinded and all this sort of shit. It's like, so are we we're assuming that this is the same world that we currently live in, right? We're assuming that these people are in the same world as us and they might be perceiving something vastly different, like, but they're looking at the same shit. So he was saying, like, when there's, like, for some reason, a man going up to the top of a mountain and getting on his knees and being like, God, like, why have you forsaken me? Or like, I'm not worthy enough for you. Or that was one of the, some permutation of some prophet saying this one point. There's like, I am nothing, like, compared to you. He was like, what is this person describing, like, materially? That we still see now, that we assume to be in the world, that is a thing that is kind of leading to this perception or this personification of something up there. And to him,
what is the reference to the term God there? Is it like, what is he?
Yeah, like what even, like, how did he come up with this? What did he perceive? What material thing went into his system that made him like think that there's a God up there and that he should say this is his kind of relationship to it? It's like, I am nothing and you're great. And what he concludes is that, like, okay, so where else are you like simultaneously perceived and perceiving and have to like work out a relationship with and like having to like, commune with and sacrifice for, and is like his personal relationships. This is the fact of society, of like human society, is that, because here also I am perceiving, but I am being perceived, and like I'm judging, but I'm being judged, and I have to like work on this whole thing, and it's a bit scary and chaotic, and it can abandon me or it can like do me well, and I have to have faith in it, and like that's like the fact of human experience that he thinks religion basically describes. And again, I'm not sure that I wouldn't go like stand on a podium in front of Congress and argue this at threat of death, because I'm not smart enough to, and I want to study it more now. But I do think that the religious, like my religious angle is like, I was already passionate about my ideas and my arts and different art mediums. Like I could do all that on my own. But the thing that was really missing from my life was like a real reverence for people and for my own fallibility and like my need for personal relationships and like intimate ones. And yeah, I mean, I actually needed like that to supersede my passion about the other sort of objective cultural things that I was gleaning great meaning from, because I've always been passionate about stuff. But yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were saying that of like that, the interaction, the interpersonal perceiving and being perceived and all that. It's like, that's the real fundamental reality. From an evolutionary perspective, you could say we're adapted to the social reality, not the material reality, right? Like literally.
I don't know from an evolutionary perspective, but I do agree. I mean, there's also, I think Alfred Adler said this too, that like every problem is a social problem. Like you have no problem that is not an interpersonal problem.
But Adler's all like he's reducing everything to an inferiority complex and the superiority complex. Like he's
Well, I have read one book about Alfred Adler that he didn't write, and it was a pop philosophy book. So I'm sure I know more than you about this.
I haven't even read a full one. So
okay, so
Adler?
I didn't know that you're in the second religion.
Adler.
I hardly know her. What I was gonna say. No,
cited by Jordan.
Everything stays.
Also, that's in my Jordan Peterson video. Actually, I would put Adler in it.
Really? But what I have, my closest contact with what is the nature of reality type thing? What is the nature of reality? And then meaning and engagement with it is when I smoke too much weed and I have a panic attack, and it's like, all right, now we're like back to square one. I don't even have a, what is this or whatnot. And what I've noticed repeatedly is anytime for me, like a panic attack is usually like a hyper awareness of like existential reality, I would say, or something like that. Like it's very like, what is real, blah, blah, that type of stuff. It's like that. And what I've noticed is I can never have
That's almost hallucinatory. That's almost...
Well, I wouldn't say it's hallucinatory because I'm not seeing. I mean, it's not like I'm seeing anything that's not there.
You're just freaking out about the world.
But, but everything is unrecognizable. Like it's like right to the right page.
It feels like
it's like scary.
Yeah. And what do you call it? But when I'm engaged in like social interaction or like conversations something like that, or there's a social problem in front of me, like for example, this one time I was very high and I was kind of freaking out, and then we had ordered like food from the delivery driver. And everyone was higher than me, so I had to go get it.
Yeah.
So now I had a real problem in front of me. I had a material problem of like And that was the social reality saying like, dude, quit fucking intellectualizing. You have a fucking private frontage. And it took me out instantly, and it was
funny.
like done.
It's crazy to say that because I don't actually really talk about my experience with weed, but the first time that I smoked weed, I had a full like kind of psychotic episode, and since then I dissociated for like years and years and years and years. Yeah. And so that was the constant, and I kept trying to smoke weed, and every time it would be this horrible like ego deathy nightmare. Yep. Like it's just
the first like 10 times for me were.
And it was, and like, it's every time. And so like, and it's eventually maybe I could smoke like in really small doses and consistently get used to it. And eventually I realized, why the fuck am I doing this? This is ridiculous. So I stopped forever. But there was one time that it was starting to happen, and I had a good group of friends at the time, and I was starting to have this thing, and they knew this about me. Like I was fucked in the head. And so it was happening, and there was the only thing that ever really stopped me was they started like making me laugh, as they were like, hey, you know, and they started talking about like not even saying it's okay, but just like, hey, you ever think of like, they were all doing it with like a twinkle in their eye, like they're kind of doing it like very jovially, like fucking with me, like we're you know, but like it's the same thing, like the social interaction, it kind of erased. You know what I mean?
It brought out
the interior pure perception that is like just nightmare world.
Which proves that it proves. I mean, that's in my mind. I view that
evidences.
It suggests.
Why?
Yes. That
they lead one to believe
that social reality is primary over the material.
And by primary, you mean like that, what? Like,
I mean, primary in terms of you call relevance realization, in terms of like a Vervaeke thing. It's like it's just.
In terms of what it means to the human being.
Yeah, or just in terms of your, like, you know, in terms of...
You think like what we're adapting
what's relevant to. Yeah, that's right. So the point about being adapted to social reality is like, yes. So to your point, like the abstraction of, we abstract about what meaning is and all that different stuff and whatnot. And it's like, to the degree that further separates you from the social reality, which when, you know, push comes to shove, takes primacy in terms of...
Well, I guess in Vervaeke language, what we were talking about earlier, it's kind of thinking that the solution to your perspective or whatever whatever the deeper layers are, is to be found at the propositional level. Like you're looking for me at the level of proposition.
Which is fun.
It's more, again, is it the disciplinary thing that's like about connecting with people or about like how you live your life? Then at that level, that's where the problem is, or like that's where the solution is that a much more fundamental thing.
And this lines up again with John McMurray's talks about Christianity, because he has a separate point where basically he argues that what Jesus is one of Jesus's clear messages, so therefore one of the messages of Christianity. And I, like John McMurray and a lot of people from this era of philosophy, like early 1900s, like I'm just reading the Bible. We're not talking about Catholicism or the Roman Empire or whatever. We're trying to go back, because John McMurray and the Christian theology I like argues like, you know, Roman theology, Roman state shit that got mixed into Christianity. It's like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, that's a separate thing.
You can just talk about the Gospels, or you the
Gospels and Acts, and then I think just
because like Apocalypse gets a bit weird, or Revelation.
Yeah, I try to critically weigh them as like they are books. They're letters from like 90% of it's fucking Paul. And so the first was like, who's Paul? Is this Jesus? It's like it's one of the.
I'm pretty sure the oldest text we have is Paul.
The oldest one out of all the before the Gospel.
Mark's stuff, like so Mark is the first Gospel that we know. Like it's the oldest one that we have.
Uh-huh.
There's Pauline letters that are older.
Really? That's really interesting.
Now, I don't know, maybe on this...
Let's not make that...
information.
It could be the earliest, like, physical, first copy.
I haven't done some great, like, exegesis and understanding of the history of the various books.
Yeah. Because the Catholic apologists would be very upset with you, by the way. God didn't leave, or Jesus didn't leave a Bible, he left a church. The Bible came after Jesus' existence. Peter was the church on which he built his the rock in which he built his church. So the Catholics would say saying that the magisterium, which is like the tradition, that Jesus established, which preceded the Bible came after Christ, right? And so the argument is the church and the church tradition is closer to the original.
Oh, yeah, the Catholics would say that. So they're doing what's more.
Because they're doing,
So the Catholic Church the Catholic Church believes that what it is currently doing is more accurate to Jesus' behavior than the Bible.
What you're talking about is soulish.
Let's go easy on Catholicism.
Listen. Nobody knows apologetics more than I do.
Let me complete the thing, okay? So I haven't done that part. I will have to be diving really into the Bible. Eventually, I'll be obviously making some piece on Christianity with the channel, but it's just above my weight class, so I just need some time. But what John McMurray said and is clear in the Gospels is Jesus's inclination to prioritize like free flowing, like kind of dynamic personal relations before like adherence to like dogmatic adherence to social rules. Is that the social rules exist to facilitate like personal connection. And so when the social rule is dominating at the expense of like authentic, healthy, connecting human beings, then the social rule is wrong. So
Spirit of the law versus letter of the law.
Yeah, exactly. So like when Jesus's disciples are hungry on the Sabbath and they're shucking corn or whatever, and then the Pharisees are like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that because of the laws and the thing. And he's like, I forget the first, but he's like, what do you think the laws are for? Like that's the general vibe.
What do you think his laws are for? Yeah.
What do you think they're for, right? And this is John McMurray leading up to, in his time, this is in the 30s, I think, saying that if the people are having sex outside of wedlock, he's like, okay, so that the marriage is a social institution, and the free, genuine personal connections between people that's the real thing. And so one of two things is possible here. Either one, personal connections are so fucked that the proper natural like expression of them, which is marriage, is not happening. So we need to solve the level in the personal. Or potentially the personal relations are good and the social rule is wrong and we need to update, which is so brave for a Christian theologian to say at that time. But I think that is like the social rules are meant to facilitate more of this, you know? That's
maybe it's like this is it was making me think of what we were talking about last night with liminality and structure.
Talk to me about it. Explain it to the
folks at home.
Explain it to that window over there.
So, yeah, I mean, this is coming out of anthropologist Victor Turner's work, and he distinguishes between, I think it was the Ndembu tribe he was studying in Africa, and the difference between structure and liminality, or what he calls the communitas, and liminality is actually one of three forms.
Communitas?
Communitas. So, like, these are the polarities, or the binary. And structure, your place in society.
Hold on. Wait, communitas and structure. What's the relation between these two words?
So
you told me structure and liminality. You changed the binary. So I noticed.
Communitas, he actually identifies three different forms of communitas: marginality, inferiority, and liminality. So liminality is betwixt and between.
So communitas is attached to the liminality side, not the structure side.
So liminality is part of communitas.
Huh? Okay, wait.
So, yeah. So I'll give you a few examples. So liminality is like within ritual. It's a dissolving of all the structural norms. So within structure, in a highly stratified tribal setting, how you talk to people, how you interact with anyone is structured.
Right.
So like how parents interact with children, how you interact with the chief, how the chief interacts with the shaman, all of these things are structured. Within liminality, all that breaks down, and it's this sort of hippie Jesus values. Yes, like, hey, we're all in this together, cosmopolitanism, humans are all one, we are all equal.
Yeah, the rules melt.
And that's just like within the container of liminality. Because the purpose of liminality is the tribal model of humanity is that it's molded. Like, you as a human are molded by the society. So what happens with liminality, we put you into the alchemical container of the ritual, and that formed clay breaks down, and then you reform it to something else. So the boy breaks down and reformed as a man. So you emerge from the ritual as a man. Liminality as a man. What's that?
Is it like as individual, distinct from the community, and like as a child, that raw?
So these are individuals within it. Yeah. So, you know, if you're becoming a chief, you will also go through a ritual. Yeah. So you move from being a man into being a chief. If you're you move from being a woman into being a mother. You know, like these transformations, there's like a liminal ritual thing to update your status. And in a lot of societies, when the boy comes back as a man, he's now got a different name. In some, the mother can't even make eye contact with him anymore, or, you know, has to talk to someone else through him. So it's like there is that can only happen at a small scale because everyone in the society has to recognize your transformation and your place in the structure has completely changed.
Right.
And that's like really fascinating.
Which we lack rituals. So you think of the modern day. I mean, this is not my original critique. This is a thing that is out there for sure.
Young Chu Han, you should cite for the Marxist perspective on that because I
The
know
lack of rituals.
Like
an initiation.
We did it in my bloody book club. It's called The Disappearance of Rituals. That you live in an actively anti-ritual society, and that he also describes as anti-form, like hostile to form, which again is my instinct when I'm
with form.
He means it so broadly, it's ridiculous. But like that is, for example, me having like growing up in an art school in my generation that's becoming like, you know, technologically rewired on social media, and it's this time in history or whatever, where they're like art is subjective. So they're actively hostile to form. They're hostile to the notion that you could do, like, for example, I don't know, even like choral music incorrectly. It's like, oh, we should do a whole bunch of things. You know what I mean? Like they're so, you know, or like, it's kind of innately celebrated or valorized, I would say, when there's like an artist that keeps reinventing themselves and they do a million different things. And it's like, oh, you can't contain me. Like, that's so cool because you're a true individual, you know, instead of, Krongdin, I don't know how to say their name, but it's a band. It's like a jazz band. Yeah, kind of jazz band. I don't know, trust me. But, you know, at their inception, they were like, a lot of bands want to do a lot of things. We just want to do one thing really well. And that's like their whole thesis. And so that's like very form heavy. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Yeah. And the same with like ritual society, right? So, you know, to have form would be that when I turn, I don't know, 18, they initiate me into manhood in some formal way, and then everything changes as a result of that.
Yeah.
But then
only at 12.
Huh?
The initiation.
I was adapting it to the modern
But I can drink. Oh no, you can't drink in North America, can you?
19 years old for
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing to that
I drank at 18 in Scotland though, and I was it's great. It was a good time. I was so happy about it.
Pint to tenants?
Huh?
Pint to tenants?
Oh, no. I was drinking whiskey more back then, or like vodkas on the rocks. Absolute, just the most of my world.
I was 16.
Nowadays, I got the lads that take me down to Tenet's world.
I was 16. I was 16 in Dublin, and they wouldn't let me drink from the Guinness factory when we did the tour there.
You were 16.
So I fucking hate Ireland.
Okay, but anyways, yeah, it's just that we're hostile to form. Is that we're like, no, that rule doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know, it's just shit like that.
So that reminds me of like,
we don't respect it for its own sake. I think that's the thing, is like we don't respect the intrinsic, like, you know, so in Petersonian terms, back in that like little social environment where there's these strict caste systems and you treat men differently than boys and the chief differently, like as Peterson would say, right, that this was just the structure of reality. Like if the social fabric is actually the most fundamental thing, you're just perceiving that as literally true. Like, it's just that's prior to state of nature. It's like that's a man, and therefore you do this.
That's just
like
pure. That's dominance hierarchy stuff, like chimpanzees and troops.
I don't talk to you about biology.
Oh god.
But like,
trust me, I'm helping.
So the interesting thing with the communitas is that so there's that liminal thing, but when the man is becoming the chief. So liminality is the values within that between. So you're between the two structures.
Yeah.
And it's treated like a decontamination chamber. There's a week or 2 or 4 where you're like isolated from the tribe before you have the ritual, and then same afterwards. So there's like an integration time because they treat it like it's this liminality. These values without structure, dangerous shit.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah.
But in the initiation of the chief, at least in the Ndembu tribe, the person facilitating the transformation, because there's obviously someone running the ritual, is
the shaman,
the head of the tribe of the most recently of the conquered tribe. So the Ndembu would conquer this other tribe. So that's the inferiority. The inferior conquered people are held high, and I think I thought about that in terms of leftist values, like the kind of the low shall become the high, right? Whatever, the weak shall inherit the earth.
Which is like Christian conception, right?
Yeah, it's like even just BLM of like, hey, there's like this bound down to the black people of like the people that are treated as inferiors, we will rise up, and that's very like I like the values of community. Yeah,
it's like encoded honor bestowed upon the people that you are more powerful than. I think that's and also like responsibility for them.
And there's even like with religions, like you take on the religion of the people conquered. Like you look at the Roman Empire taking on Christianity, there's an interesting thing in Ireland where that's getting into.
Are you saying there's like what this person is arguing is there's like a long historical bent of sort of celebrating the inferior side of a.
So you think like it's a communitas values, the values of the celebrating the inferior is celebrating the.
Oh, this is the communitas values. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
So the other one is the marginal, is the people at the edges, which also again fits like the liminal.
so the marginal is part of the liminal. So there's like three things within the communitas.
Communitas. Yeah. So
Okay.
liminal is the within the ritualistic, like dissolving. So it's betwixt and between.
Yeah.
And then the inferior is the people at the bottom, and then the marginals are the people at the edges.
Okay.
And that's
And this,
like-
you've been on this forever. The edge of the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the shaman lived at the edge of the village. The smithy, the blacksmith or whatever, the metalsmith lived at the edge of the village. And there's actually, I've read an interesting article that like Yahweh was originally a smith god.
When I say yeah,
You say
all right, go. So Smith God, you the
that he was like a sort of like a Hephaestus, like a sort of a minor god within a canon, probably the canon of Canaan. It's fun to say. But then, so it was a local god that kind of became highly esteemed and then kind of, ate the Holy Land. I didn't delve too much into it. I think I saved it my Zotera and then never came back to like reading, like diving deep in it. But a fascinating thing. But like, again, the smithy was at the edge of the village. And so there's these values and they were treated very differently. And Hephaestus is the lame god. There's these elements and but the values at those edges. And that, so the inferior, like at the edge of the society and the liminal, there's the values very much of the leftism of like honoring those or like esteeming the those who are not treated, those who are not on top of structure.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of that very much the Christian values, which are pretty much communitas values of turn the other cheek. Like, do not get involved in these games of structure. Do not get involved. Like, don't be prideful and trying to like stand up for yourself. Instead, turn the other cheek. Don't fight back. Like, give unto Caesar what Caesar's. And just
I was going to say the exact same thing because I was just incorporating that into one of my lectures. That you're not God, I am that I'm doing in Vancouver. In case this comes up before that, cjdx.com/lecture on June 20th at the Rio Theater. Okay, anyways, but I was just writing with the same thing, right? Because as soon as you were saying all that, it's like, yeah, like, and that's also what I was talking a little bit when I was invoking Leela in that one video, is like the play is to but it's not to like be outside of it actually, because when he says render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar but give to God what belongs to God, it's like no, participate in the profane. Like your goal is not to try to pretend to be God. Like you have to play by rules and that makes you part of the thing, right? And I of course believe the same thing about like art mediums where I encourage people and try to put my hand on the side of the scale that I feel like is necessary at this time in my life and in culture. No, play by the rules. Like subordinate yourself to the thing. Get involved in like a real thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't also get to go to this liminal space.
I like the Lama quote of like learn the rules so you can break them properly. Like
Tom Dalai Lama said that.
Yeah,
I thought everyone said that.
at least around that the internet, so God only knows who.
That sounds like one of those quotes that could be like Abraham Lincoln.
Almost every one of those quotes I've dug down on. You know, if I'm using a quote in an article or something, I'll be like, let me just check and make sure. Like, where did they say? And I'm like, God damn it. It's like another one that we've lost.
Yeah.
So I normally do like pseudo, like in that case, I do pseudo Dalai Lama. You know, like there's, if you're talking about ancient texts, it's like pseudo Dionysus.
Sure.
Like people would write under the names of other people,
Right.
which is an interesting thing in itself because you're like invoking the mythos of that person. You're like, what I'm writing is in the spirit of this person.
It reminds you of the Fargo thing. So
Yeah, which is fascinating.
the Fargo thing that I was told that I didn't know about is you just watched it in the crime entertaining farcical thing, and it
So
starts.
it's your Coen Brothers movie, not the TV show.
Yeah, and it starts on. It starts with this is all based on a true story, which means you. And it's just not.
Yeah, I watched the whole movie.
It's an ultra postmodern.
Is this for real?
That's so legendary.
Yeah, and I was just like, that is brilliant because it's just like pragmatism, just using that because you know what state that's going to evoke in the people watching it, as long as they don't have IMDb to look up whether it's actually true or not. And then you're watching that in a certain state. It's like putting you in a state. I'm like, what wonderful artistic technique. Like, you could call it dishonest, but then just not interesting at cost. Kind of like,
I'm just saying it's like the same sort of power wielding where it's like I'm writing from the perspective of this person, and you just do it.
yeah.
Like, what does that do?
Yeah. What was I talking about when I was going? Oh yeah, so like with those quotes, I just put like a pseudo, because I think it's still, there's a reason why you've attributed to Aristotle, or there was one I was saying to you, Winston Churchill, a while ago, that if you're going through hell, keep on going. Churchill didn't say it, but like, you say pseudo Winston Churchill because it like, it fits
That is a good solution. I think pretty elegant.
Yeah, because I still like to put it to that person, but I don't like to put out the dishonest thing of like, this person.
Well, because you're also trying to efficiently say, I mean, I think this also about, disclaimers where you go like, if I'm saying something like, well, most people, I don't know what you're trying to say. It's like, most people in Toronto will be renting for the rest of their life and probably getting more successful as they get older, but we're having a hard time buying houses. There's all that. So I can do that, and I can be like, and then here's my disclaimers about like the poor people and then the rich people and all that. And you can do this forever, and it just takes away from what I realized eventually for myself is I was like, I was raised like middle class, and then a lot of my audience is middle class. I should probably just speak like that, and then like have it. Of course, there's just have that be assumed.
Yeah.
What was I saying? It's a pseudo thing, right? It's because you're trying not to. It's a good way to express that people say that this person said this, and that's the cultural energy I'm drawing upon, without muddying it by saying, "Oh, just get out." So I think it's an efficient solution. I like this aesthetic choice.
I think that you catch on.
It will now.
Yeah.
You're on the big stage over here.
Pseudo. Call me pseudo.
Bringing it back to the elevating of the inferior. I think that's, not to bring up evolution again, but it is incredibly interesting.
Let's absolutely bring up evolution.
Maybe talking about rats.
If you're, but just to like think about this is what was the people who did that? Was it tried
By the Indember tribe?
where are they?
I think Tanzania, but maybe not. I think we'll say Tanzania.
Okay, so but definitely distinct from like some Christian cultural tradition.
Oh yeah, no,
over, right?
You just did
Just the idea, like think of how complex that is to like you conquer another tribe and then you incorporate them as an essential part of your ritual. It's like to imagine, it's where does that idea come from? It's like you can't imagine like some pre-religious like a chimpanzee tribe or something like that, like doing something as sophisticated as that. Like, yes, you have social roles, you can see where the idea of a chieftain would emerge and like a social hierarchy and whatnot, but to have something that complex, it's like, that's insane. That's
because I think we're kind of
and have that near in other traditions the same way.
Yeah.
That's what
Do you think it's like a law of the universe? Well,
it's converging
to the
symptoms.
Petersonian.
Yeah, well, it's the archetypal mimetics. It's like, bats, bugs, and birds all developed a wing, even though they all had separate genetic lineages. So that you have different traditions.
Must be like true.
Well, the wing, the wing is an archetype, so to speak, of that which provides a significant adaptive advantage, which is flight. Right? And so then it's like, okay, raising the inferiority or the inferior to
case and order maps so well onto that. Even the way they treat liminality of like, oh, you gotta have
the shamanic
planar thing. Like, we gotta because chaos, you need chaos, but you can't let it get out of order, out of control.
Very right.
So it's like having this container around it, and then because I guess the out of inferiority and marginality, these are all places from which order can be decayed. Like, that's the little dot in the yin yang, and so if you honor those things, you can make it part of a greater order.
Yes,
because you put a container around it where you're like, oh, these is where the risks come from, because this is like we need to have a decontamination chamber around this, so we need to honor the inferiors and the marginals in a certain way, even if they don't fit exactly into the structure, and they're certainly not high in the structure. But if we honor them, then we kind of increase the longevity of the system, because everyone kind of had some value within it. Even if you're not high in the structure now, there's like certain parts of it where you are high.
So this is also why I tend to like be really suspicious of like strictly non-mystic ideas of God. Like when you're like, no, I know what God wants, and I have this book and it said everything exactly, and you're sure about it, and it's like static in this way. I don't really trust that conception of like the God has to be open-ended so that you have like an ultimate kind of order, you know what I mean, above it all that like, you can keep track runs for. You know,
It's
as soon as like God enters the system and you've like the very logocentric and rational God that is devoid of mysticism and devoid of mystery, and like we basically have figured it out and is identifiably associated with Western culture or something like that. I'm like, yeah, you gotta be way more careful on that, you lunatics.
the irony of that, because it's like the Christian fundamentalists will do that. Like God is this, God is
Yeah, no,
that.
I just said it, yeah.
It's like you are actually adopting the scientific materialist mindset of, well, God's an entity, God's a thing.
Yeah, so I saw
You're stripping it of the spirituality that, like, you know, is what makes the religion so meaningful and deep, but then just
because
narrowing it to this little
the faith element
thing.
has got like I saw you had Richard Rohrbuck outside. I remember somewhere he talked about how religious people, like fundamentalists, have become believers, while you talked about physicists having faith. Like physicists, like the believers need this certainty. It's like, I have the thing, I have the answer. The ring is book. Whereas the physicists are like, we don't know.
Big Bang.
We don't know if we can know.
Right.
There's other parts of science where you get arrogance, you get hubris, but like physics, you're kind of meeting the limits of what it is to be human. And you know, is he a Franciscan theologian? And he's kind of like, you know, we're reaching like that faithful attitude of the openness to a mystery that's greater than what I can have is kind of being lost among the religious as there's a digging down on this. I know the answers because it's in the book. It says it in this section, and anything that goes against that is just a test.
That's why for like religion, I see it as a dangerous tool to use in conflict. Like as I know there's some sort of Christian basis of this where it's like the realm of the transcendent is all around us, but you can't really invoke it. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like this invisible thing that's happening in secret almost. And I think it's, especially when it comes to a lot of social problems, cultural problems, and interpersonal conflict, especially, is when you start invoking God to try to figure out how to solve that. I just really passionately believe that once you're having an interpersonal conflict, then you back the fuck down from the religious argument, and you gotta do this. And we can talk about the religious thing after, but it's a dangerous tool to wield when it can so easily just be like, God's on my side, and God said what you do to stop, and now it's just fused.
I mean, that goes back to, we were talking about Peterson a while ago, and like the turning something into an archetypal weapon.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of,
that's what's I
when you can make it, because you're
devouring.
you can making the other person evil.
Yeah, was saying the embodiment of the devouring.
Except calling a person, a specific person in your lifetime that you don't like, the an archetype, and you're like, that's the archetype.
Whore of Babylon.
With the very, very, very thick layer of like, oh, this is educational. It's an example. No, it's not. You're talking about the person. And then I also think for him, psycho it's what was it that Jung and first psychoanalysis is a similar tool when you're doing dream interpretation. I think also that is similar kind of dangerous religious tool. And then one that for Peterson in particular is that this is what I really found was at the bottom of the Peterson research that made it make a lot more sense for me. I'm talking quieter because I'm like, should I say this? No. But it was that in Maps of Meaning in 1999, he already found like the lie was at bottom. It's the lie. Like that's the devil, the thing that brings about hell. That's the cause of the Holocaust. That's the whole thing. And then the grand justification for his war against trans people, non-binary people, all of the leftists, the whole thing is just that they're lying. And even if they don't know that they're lying, they are lying because they're slipping far back. And that's a miracle because once they're lying, you no longer have to be receptive at all into any sort of objective inputs. It's over. It's really
And is like cemented, openness gone. It's like
even if they say all the right things, they're still not trustworthy because they're lying, right? And so the lie, like, and that's my big critique is, even in political conversations now, I feel like a lot of like debates and conversations collapse and they're just wars because all you're saying is accusing the other person of bad faith or lying or whatever. So then you might as well not even do it. You have to at least show up and play the game, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
which
to me,
basically what you're doing, Paul. You're trying to.
You do. That's the thing, though, is you do take people at fucking face value, and there's something miraculous because now you're working with the actual data that's here. Yeah. You know, instead of
the archetypal like projection thing, which is that whole thing of like, you know, the radical things, and you're trying to be like, well, can I get into this without losing it? Can we actually go in? And I think that's, yeah, I admire that kind of, it's the peacemaking work that Peterson talks about, but then fails to follow through on. But I really appreciate the sentiments in that. It's like searching for a transcendental truth, or like the thing that can bring these different localities together. Yeah. And I feel like that's what you're seeking, or at least you're trying to
Yeah, and it requires a sacrifice of ego because you got to go in and be like, look, I'm gonna tell you.
That's the most impressive thing that I think about you is like in that
You don't care at all with how fucking stupid you look.
no,
I know.
but it is impressive that it takes a lot of it just takes a lot. It's very principled and very pragmatic, and it does take way more bravery to I don't know than something else.
Yeah.
Than to be on a live stream and in front of people and speaking to somebody and just letting yourself not like you're not trying to impress everybody. You actually are like, okay, I'll let you're aware, like in that, I'm talking about the Destiny conversation. The first one where you like are aware that you're in front of an audience is gonna not like this, and you are going to do it anyway. So you're gonna make yourself like wide and open, and you're gonna represent something that you know that they're gonna hate, and you're gonna just receive this because your priority wasn't you winning the thing. Is that what you're saying?
You make good use of the fool archetype where you're like, you
don't do it all the time. You don't do it all the time, but I've seen you do it multiple times, and that you're willing to do that for the sake of your principles. And that I think is a real display of character because it doesn't redound to your status. It doesn't like, you know what I mean? It doesn't make you look sick. And I feel like, of course, me, especially, I'm like an aesthete or whatever. I love looking sexy and cool all the time. You know, I would definitely shrink away from things that make me look less sexy and cool. It's just a very principled thing to be willing to do at all. You know, like turning down a bigger paycheck kind of thing. It's like when I see someone do that, I'm like, oh, they mean it. They mean what they're talking about.
Yeah. The fool is the precursor to the savior. That's why I unironically say that all the time. It's like that's, you know, you got to identify with the fool in order to become capable of engaging in the transformation. Yeah, because I can learn. You go, oh, okay, I was
that was so interesting when you said that the other day. Was it the idea that you need to be rejected by a system in order to even be a thing? What was it? If you find success within some either status hierarchy or
this probably was something with Justin Vernon of the
that was it.
You have to be shaped by the system. You're Justin Vernon from Bon Iver. That he
I know Bon Iver.
Yeah. See, like Justin Vernon was
Bon Iver, right?
So I think it's actually Bon Iver. So Bon Iver is like the French. They've always pronounced it Bon Iver, but I'm pretty sure it's Bon Iver because I like Bon Iver.
The least important part. Yeah.
This is the pedantry. This is pseudo Bon Iver.
This is pedagogy. It's pedagogy.
So he was part of a band before the Armand Edison, and they moved from Wisconsin to Raleigh, and they were trying to make it. They were trying to be successful, but they failed, and then band broke up because they just wanted to go a different direction from him. They went on to be a band called Megaphone. His girlfriend broke up with him and he got like real sick, and he went to his parents' cabin in maybe Minnesota or wherever, like up north, and just freezing cold cabin for the winter, and that was the Bon Iver.
Shamanic.
There was the Bon Iver out of which it emerged. And so what I was saying to CJ is that like he more or less he'd been shaped by the system. And this is the Foucauldian constitution of power. Like in aspiring to be successful, you allow yourself to be shaped. You understand, you introject an understanding of the system outside. And even when you're rebelling against that, that's the Dalai Lama thing. You've learned the rules and now you can break them properly. Is he now lets go of that? Okay, I'm not going to be a successful man. I'm just going to make what the fuck I want to make because I don't know what else to do. I have to tap into the pure intrinsic because my attempts to go towards the extrinsic is completely failed. Mm-hmm. And at that snapping, you find the something new. You put together, you have the tools of mastery, you have the understanding of the environment and the landscape. And now you're free of the power structure so that you go for it because you're like, I just want to make what I'm going to make the truest thing, the most creative thing I can make. And then out of that, I think there comes breakthroughs in the intellectual and
but it's also not just immature impulsive vomit. I think the thing that seems so clearly like self-evidently true is that if you find success in a power structure, like initially, then you just become an agent of that power structure. Obviously, yeah. What else do you have there?
That it's how can your genes are editorialized into the systems. Your success is domesticated.
Yeah, exactly. You just become its bespoke. Like whether you like it or not, it just makes sense. If I just start doing comedy and I'm successful in comedy, then I am shaped by comedy as it is. That's just. Like, it's so self-evident. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think I saw the richness of, in my life, and a lot of different people I know that have tried to be something and they were rejected out of it. And then it came back to them in some other way, which is also something I'm working on for the High School Musical 3 video that I'm making. But it's a bit about masculinity, and it's also in the shape of religion itself. So for me, my relationship with God and the shape that I find very Familiar, I guess, is like you try to assert yourself and you're humbled and you fail. And so that you let go of that idea of yourself and you put it in the hands of God or whatever. You're like, maybe not me, maybe not me. And then you're deconstructed. And then the most miraculous thing is when it's just given back to you. And it seems to happen. And this is also my kind of vague shape of, not vague, it's very concrete. I was just being nervous. But of some masculine relationship, like very like heterosexual relationships between men and women. as I do.
In other words, normal relationships. As God intended them to be.
Never heard that laugh as CJ before. You got
that was funny. But I recognize this similar shape where men will give their vulnerability and their weakness. So they have their proximal sort of world goals where they want to be strong and they can't let themselves look too weak or else they'll get, destroyed. And they have this status to fight for and they have the masculine desire to assert themselves and all that. And then when you have a very fruitful, healthy relationship with a woman, an intimate one, then, or maybe multiple women, maybe this is the relationship with a lot of men's relationship with women. In some spaces, you give your vulnerability out there, like you let it be seen. And then there's the similar, very beautiful thing you can do is honor that, like giving of vulnerability and like put it back in them so they're stronger and the priorities are sharper. You give them their feminine back without destroying them. So you make yourself destroyable and then someone puts you back in you and now you're stronger and you're like more clear.
It's beautiful.
So anyways, I had the same feeling about, I guess, let's say Bon Iver, right? It's like he goes out there and is rejected, he's back in this vulnerable state. And then miraculously, he's put back inside of himself and he re-enters there, but he has different priorities, a different sound. Like, you know what I mean? You're just a little more weathered.
Yeah. And was it like, I find it fascinating that, and this is something I find really interesting with art, of like how, with bands, it's often when they're really young, that they're like amazing and then they lose it as they get older. Like they're getting better at music, but they're losing their relevancy because I think they're closer to the pure archetypal thing when they're younger. Yeah. But what's interesting about Bon Iver is that he was 27, 28, very old for someone to be breaking through. And he had no interest in breaking through at that level. It just happened. It just defined the sound of indie music for like a generation. But like that thing of like, because I think there's an energy there with
music.
That's a whole,
because other like writers or artists, it's like you perfect your technique as you get older, and most a lot of
the technique wise you're getting better.
Yeah, a lot of artists produce like I think actual like painting artists and writers produce better work as they get older. But music, it's
sounded broken about it could be like a crystal intelligence thing versus a fluid intelligence.
Yeah, there's something about.
But it is like I don't know. There's something weird about like Dylan. A great interview from the 90s, I think it was with 60 Minutes, and he was just like, I don't know how I wrote those.
Yeah, he has no idea.
It's like how do you, and he just quotes some lines from It's All Right, Man, and you're like, yeah. And he was just like, Joan Baez in the 1960s, she said, in Greenwich Village, the songs were pouring out from like ticker tape. They were just like, flowing through. It's like,
I think it's very, it's like, so it wasn't me.
Like, what is, I'm fascinated by that, because like, what scientific, I don't have good enough frames. Like you get like Rick Rubin's book, or like people trying to put this almost semi-mystical thing around it.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert had that TED talk talking about the genius, or talking about this external thing. Like what is going on?
I think
that those lyrics are pouring out of.
I think it might have been in Rick Rubin's like book, but I think talking about the muses,
Stephen Pressfield. Stephen Pressfield talks a lot about. I don't know if Rubin puts the word muses on it, but I don't know if you've read.
But that's that's this is the Greek, the muses, right?
Music.
Yeah. But there's something cogent about that conceptualization of creativity and inspiration, where the muses, like, they bless you and then it comes through you, and the muses also might abandon you and it's not up to you.
Yeah,
it's something like crazy and cruel and mystic about this. But I do think it's good to also understand that when the creativity is pouring through you, to have the humility, not be like, I did this.
It kind of ties in what you're saying about religion, because you just show up and some days the muses are there and you're like, how is this going so well today? Yeah. And then the next day you show up and you're like, I'm doing the exact same thing. Like, I'm here.
For me, the big way I like to point out to people constantly is that sometimes we'll have the magic thing flow through me, and that it's fucking amazing and it's done in a week. And then sometimes I'll take a full year to make something. So I actually had this. I use an example on my latest album on Sobermore, the EP, on the track Alice. Like that one is really tender and intimate and emotional. But like I had to write. It was so painful. Writing, recording, everything about it was extremely painful and took for fucking ever. And then there's like other tracks, like I don't know, like Heart. I literally dreamed of that one. I woke up and I had it, and like so I got to the piano, I wrote it down, and so that one, and it just happened, and it was done. And both of those like are the same amount of good. That's the actual painful part. It's not that like the hard work or the inspiration is the more primary thing. It's just same quality.
I mean, but this is the kind of the contrast between, you know, there's the old story of Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan. Like they were having a drink in a cafe in Paris, and Leonard Cohen was like, "Oh, I love just like a woman. Like, how long did that take to write?" Bob Dylan was like 6 minutes, and he was like, "I love Hallelujah. How long did that take to write? 10 years." It's that difference of creative style. And Leonard Cohen talks about it like Dylan is picking up these like uncut gems, these like pure, beautiful things in nature. Whereas Cohen's thing is like to polish it until it's like so, and just to keep going. And it's a craftsmanship rather than the pure inspiration. I love creativity talk because I'm like, it's like a mystery. It's like, that is mystical to me. The what is going on there. Because anyone can encounter that by sitting down with a blank page and you just try to birth something, and it's just how it works and how it doesn't work is so, I don't know, I love it. But I do have to go.
Yeah.
So I love this. I would happily have stayed here for another hour or two.
What's the next time we should smoke some weed and do this?
Oh my God.
So what do you guys think of Israel?